China and the United States are watching a region on edge as India-Pakistan tensions threaten to spiral into full-scale conflict. In the early hours of Wednesday, May 7th, Delhi struck Pakistan, the deepest India has struck inside its neighbour since the 1971 war. It acted in response to a terrorist attack within Indian-administered Kashmir that killed 26, mostly Hindus and tourists. An incident India links to Pakistan. With Islamabad vowing it has the right to self-defense, will the incident lead to conflict? Could the conflict draw in neighbours like China, Pakistan's ally, or even the United States? Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Yin Khvat. Joining us today are Venus Upadhayaya, MOFA 2025 Taiwan Fellow, India National School of Leadership Doctoral Fellow and a senior journalist, Ronan Fu, Academia Sinica Institute of Political Science Assistant Research Fellow, and Ghulam Ali, Hong Kong Research Centre for Asian Studies Deputy Director. Welcome to all of you on the show today. At the time of recording in Taipei at 2 p.m. on May 7th, Pakistan says India hit 3 sites in Pakistan-administered Kashmir and 2 in Pakistan's Punjab province, leaving dozens dead and injured, including women and children. Delhi said it had launched precision strikes targeting 9 terrorist and not military infrastructure sites. Earlier, India's National Investigation Agency had identified 3 suspects among the April 22nd gunmen as local Adil Hussain Toka and 2 Pakistani nationals, Ali Bai and Hasim Musa. Delhi says Musa is an ex-Pakistan Special Forces commando. It says all 3 are confirmed members of Lashkar-e-Taiba or LET, which India says is backed by Pakistan's intelligence services or ISI. Pakistan denies all this, saying India has not conducted an independent international investigation. Dr. Ali, let me come to you first. What is your view of India's strikes today?
I think first it was expected, keeping in view the history of hostile relationship between 2 countries, and second, the current government needed to something for safe face saving. But I think it's leading to escalation in the sense that Pakistan denied these attacks. Pakistan asked for open inquiry by international community or United Nations. India has not shown a single evidence, even to its own audience, that these attacks were conducted by Pakistan or supported by Pakistan. When there was open call for inquiry by international community, I think it should have been strained. India should not have taken these steps, as you already mentioned, that it is one of the most severe since 1971. And by now, Pakistan has also retaliated by claiming to downing 5 Indian jets. So I think it's escalating. And it should have been restrained.
Right. Venus, I would like you to respond to Ghulam's response there. He says essentially that India has escalated the situation, and he also says India hasn't provided any evidence that Pakistan was behind the April 22nd attack.
I think the message behind it from India is very clear, that India's restraint cannot be taken for granted. And this is not the first time that this has happened. It has been happening. And so far as evidence is concerned, I think what about the 20 times before, the judicial request that India has sent Pakistan, the detailed dossiers and even the DNA samples that were sent by India. For example, the 21 Mumbai attacks, nothing came out of it. Take, for example, the 2016 Pathankot attacks. In that even Pakistan was invited to be a part of the investigation. Nothing came out of it. So you cannot say that, India hasn't provided any evidence. Now, are you saying that a country, which has suffered such a tragedy, and while the investigations are happening, should openly come out and share all the investigations? Does any country do that? Has any country done that? So I think this is baseless. The point is that this is an attack on India's rise. This is India's decade. And certainly India has left a message, and a very strong message, to everyone.
Before we move on to Ronan, I want you to talk about the restraint, because India said that, that they have exercised restraint in the strikes this morning. There were precision strikes?
I think, first of all, we need to be very clear as to what is meant by precision strikes. When a professional army says that it has conducted precision strikes, it means that it has evidence that these strikes were precise. So,
And they were targeted at a specific goal.
Yeah, they were targeted at militant, they were targeted at terrorist camps. That is what the Indian statement says.
So Pakistan said it has a right to self-defense. It considers today's strikes an act of war. It also considered an act of war any redirection of the water, for example, suspending the Indus Water Treaty. So what kind of response do you believe we might see from Pakistan?
Yeah, so nobody knows what's going to happen in the next couple of days. But here's my prediction. I think Pakistan's response will be very likely to be calibrated, measured, but significant, trying to send a very clear message without increasing the likelihood of unintended consequences. And here, the consequences I mean escalatory, to a full-scale war.
So what would be escalatory and what would not be?
Yeah, so basically, if they can just say, okay, identify some Indian, terrorist groups, camps, or military installations, and just, target those regions or those installations, and I think everything will be under control. That'll be considered as a calibrated and measured retaliation. If what they did is actually just target, the Indian border or the Indian land, whatever they want to target, then I think that's going to lead to a very, very tragic outcome. That we consider as a non-calibrated target.
Ghulam, I'd like to get your opinion. As Ronan said, the next 24, 48 hours will be critical. How do you think Pakistan
I think Pakistan
will
has
not
already
escalate?
Retaliated. It has
So you don't
claimed
expect
to.
anything else?
I think it will. Pakistan would respond as much as India responds. Second, I think.
So a strike on Indian territory?
Yes, it will strike Indian territories in a same forceful way. It has already done. Soon after India attacked this, Pakistan responded. And
So
I think
will it be military strikes? Because
it's a military strikes.
So India specifically said it did not target military sites in Pakistan. It targeted terrorist sites.
It targeted civilians. It targeted mosques. It targeted the schools. If it was a war, it should have targeted to the military installations. India is basically targeting civilian people. 26 people, mostly women and children, are died in this one. Secondly, I think if, as my friend said, if going by claims, Pakistan has everyday terrorist attack. Pakistan claims these are being funded by India's RAW and India's intelligence agencies. Last month, we have a very big terrorist attack in Jafar Express. So should Pakistan go as India is going that, it's because we are saying that we have evidence. Pakistan also showed evidence. Pakistan took the evidence to the United Nations. Pakistan took evidence to the international community. On these particular strikes, United States, Donald Trump said it is a shame on India that it has taken these strikes. International community has expressed deep regret about India's response.
Okay, Venus, would you like to respond?
I think, first of all, Trump's statement is being disconstructed. What Trump said is he did not say it's a shame on India. He said it's a shame. Then he said that this has been happening for quite some time. He said decades, and I quote the word decades. Then he said, actually, it has been happening for centuries, and I quote the word centuries. And then he said, this time, I hope, this time it ends. So that is his whole statement. Let's not take out a few words from it and take it out of context. That is very important.
Okay. Yeah. Ronan, you want to jump in?
Yeah, so what we're afraid is, Ghulam just mentioned that retaliation has already been made, but what we worried is that, there might be some further retaliation. And, based on the exchange between these two, what worries us is the possibility of unintended consequences or some misperception being built, so that will lead to some spiral that gets out of control. Yeah, so it's a real dangerous that we have to face it very seriously.
Right, and Ghulam, I wanted to ask you, so the evidence that was brought to connect India to the Baloch Liberation Army, What sort of evidence is there? Because it seems to be substantial evidence to link Pakistan to LET. So, for example, David Coleman Headley, one of the co-conspirators in the 2008 Mumbai attacks, when he gave evidence in court, he said that the Pakistan intelligence service was behind the planning and the operations of those attacks. And we know that Lashkar-e-Taiba was blamed for those attacks.
Pakistan has captured a serving Indian naval officer who is in Pakistan's prisons, who had been running several terrorist camps in Balochistan for a very long time. India can deny that fact. Secondly, what is most dangerous this time, India faced terrorism after a very long time. Pakistan has been facing terrorism very regularly. Pakistan blame India that it's being sponsored by India's Ra agency, but Pakistan never took any action like India did. Pakistan never crossed international border. What is no pressure on Pakistani government and military is that whenever there is a next attack in Pakistan and Pakistan has evidence of Indian involvement, Pakistan will retaliate within India as India did last night.
Okay. Venus, would you like to respond to that?
I think since Pahalgam, April 22nd incident had happened, many Pakistani leaders have gone on record on the camera telling that Pakistan has a history of militancy. And even after yesterday's strikes have happened, again on the Sky News, if you have seen this morning, those things were reiterated. So I think we can't say that Pakistan doesn't have a history of militancy or terrorism. That's point one. Second, to say that in India terrorism is just recent, I think is a very, very misplaced statement. I mean, just for example, just talk about the exodus of 100,000 Kashmiri Pandits, Hindus, since the Pahalgam attack was targeted at Hindus. Talk about the exodus and talk about the context in which that exodus has happened. So I think I do not really agree with those statements.
Well, we'll get on that to that a little bit later, but I think what Ghulam was saying was that there was also a complementary connection between India and militant groups operating in Pakistan.
I think India has always denied that. I think RAW has been the target of all kind of narratives coming out from Pakistan. And I think any kind of an expert or people who are aware of the situation, informed audience would know how a narrative war happens. So I think what is happening right now is a narrative war between India and Pakistan. So like you have strikes and counter strikes, you have arguments and counter arguments. I just see it as a counter argument, nothing more than that.
Okay.
Pakistan is not only target of India's atrocities. India has assassination targets in Canada. India assassinated a Canadian citizen. India has a failed attempt of assassination in United States. Who could they renounce those things? Pakistan was victim, but now, this time, Pakistan is presenting its case, and India's role of supporting anybody who oppose the national narrative of Indians just assassinate them. I mean, Canada's India role is only because of this. India took operation thousands of miles away. So India cannot free itself from these operations it has been conducting in other countries, including Pakistan, including Canada, and including US.
Okay. So China and Pakistan have an all-weather cooperation that's been described as stronger than steel, higher than the Himalayas, deeper than the oceans, and sweeter than honey. Now, following the April 22nd attack, China expressed support for Pakistan's, quote, legitimate security concerns and supports its efforts to safeguard its sovereignty and security interests, while calling on both sides to exercise restraint. A few days later, conflict site Clash Report says Pakistan released photos of its JF-17C fighters equipped with new Chinese long-range PL-10 and PL-15 missiles for the first time. In addition, at the UN Security Council, China helped Pakistan, which is currently a non-permanent member, to shape the UN's response and reduce India's international support through the language of the Security Council statement on the Pahalgam attack. In terms of China's support for Pakistan over this particular incident, how would you define it?
So I think the support for Pakistan has been both two fronts, both diplomatic and material. I think the material front is basically the provide of some, arms and weapons that can actually be used in the battlefield. And what we just saw basically is the actual missile being targeted at Indian fighter jets.
So is there a difference, Ronan, between, because we know on an ongoing basis, China does supply arms to Pakistan. If it supplied them post the April 22nd incident, is that significant?
So I think what is really significant is actually put those arms under test, because the strategic implication for Beijing is actually they don't really know if these weapon systems are very useful in fighting wars. And this provides actually for them like a litmus test.
Venus, how far do you think China's all-weather partnership would go in terms of, supporting Pakistan if any conflict was to break out?
I think whatever has happened directly impacts China, and I think it involves China. For example, the Indian investigation agencies have said that they've found a hidden Huawei phone set at the Pahalgam site. Now that itself indicates a whole lot of things. First of all, Huawei is banned in India, right? So you cannot just purchase Huawei somewhere in India. It needs to be smuggled from somewhere, and from where would obviously it be smuggled? That's point one. Second, Huawei's telecom networks are controlled by Chinese state telecom operations. So you can have a Huawei SIM card and subscription plans only, it cannot happen without their knowledge. That's point one. I think that's something of very important evidence that India would be going on deeply into it. The second point is that there is a Pakistani veteran whose name is Adil Raja, and he has stated on his X channel, and he's been quoted a lot, he has said that this has been done, Pakistan has acted with China's approval. So that's another thing I want to say. So I think China is very much...
What's the evidence for that, Venus?
Sorry?
So what's the evidence to say, what evidence does he have to say that China supported it? Is that going too far?
He's an insider. So he's an insider talking about something, right? Now, please imagine that if you are talking about something as grave as Pahalgam happening, people do not share evidences on our table or on media tables, right? What we are analyzing here are, the viewpoints or the analysis which are shared by people who are authoritative. And what is meant by being authoritative? That means you come with a certain background which gives you the authority to talk about it.
Ronan, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, so I don't think that I can just settle that controversies, but what I want to point out is that, obviously, China and Pakistan, they have some, cooperation going on, that's for sure. But we should not, basically take the strategic partnership as an indicator that China will be doubling down, in this incident. I think China will do something, but it's not in China's favor to actually make it further escalatory. What they want to see is actually the calming down from both sides, so that Beijing can actually lead the attention elsewhere.
Okay, Ghulam.
I think India's evidence comes from Bollywood movies, as they have the movies planned, so they think that they also happen in the real sense. There's no evidence. We have Pakistan is open for evidence to show them and come forward to investigate. About China, I think it's a perception strongly exists, as my colleagues also said, that China supporting Pakistan. But my own feeling is that since 1990s, China has decoupled its relationship with Pakistan from its relationship with India. And China increasingly tried to portray itself as a responsible neighbor. Second, I think China is capable to handle India independently. China does not need Pakistan's help. China is aware that bringing Pakistan into Sino-Indian conflict would in fact complicate the situation rather than making any solution. So certainly we cannot totally decouple in international relation, but to my understanding, China is greatly impartial, neutral, and it's in China's interest that both India and Pakistan de-escalate.
Right. We're in very dangerous territory at the moment, Ghulam. What are the factors that, pull us back from the brink of conflict breaking out?
I think they should have more channel of communication. Both countries, India and Pakistan, should have more channels of communications. They should talk more. And
what would be the basis of those talks? And we heard from Venus there that they don't want to give the information that they have gathered, their intelligence has gathered.
Actually, it's very unfortunate. It's a long history, over 70 years of hostility. I think open maximum channel, like if you ask a particular this incident, I think they should they bring the neutral player. Maybe Middle Eastern countries acceptable to India, not China, because India will not accept China's mediation. United States could be, UN could be. They could bring forward and take the evidence from both sides, and then they can make a decision.
Okay, let's go on to the US now. So Donald Trump's first reaction to India's strikes this morning was to say, "That's a shame. I hope it ends quickly." US Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio on X said he echoed Trump's comments and was talking to both sides for peace. Now, days before India's response, Pakistan had called on its Muslim brothers like Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Kuwait to help impress on India the need to de-escalate. Venus, so we've seen events unfolding following Hamas's October 2023 attack on Israel. Now that India has struck Pakistan proper on its territory, what do you think is the potential for any conflict or incursions between India and Pakistan to spread to a wider conflict that may bring in allies?
First of all, I think we are not correctly quoting Trump. He did say it's a shame and it should end, but in between there were 3 more statements.
Which you have mentioned earlier.
Let's not, misstate him, because I think those 3 statements in between mean a lot to the entire context. Second thing, I don't think that it's going to escalate. That's my personal take on it. Indian government, even before the strikes, yesterday morning it started to come out that Indian government has directed its state governments to start to do war drills. Indian Navy is already on alert. India would be on high alert. And I think it would be, wrong to say that Pakistan is just going to strike the same way. I think India would be on high alert for a long time from now, because Pakistan can strike through proxies as well.
So you didn't think that it would unravel? What are the other reasons?
I don't think it's going to unravel in any expected way, the way we expect or the way we discuss on media tables. I think none of the side is immature. They are professional military, militaries. India is one of the best militaries of the world. So sure. I think they are certainly counting their options that are available to them.
Is it because you don't think that Pakistan will strike India?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you're mature enough, you would be ready for any kind of a thing. In interest of your national security, India would be ready for any kind of an escalation, which would not be just an escalation on the border, right? Currently, what is happening is that there is an anti-India front being created, which consists of Pakistan, Turkey, and China, right? So there are going to be diplomatic fallouts. There are going to be fallouts on the geo-economic, geopolitical forums, on multilateral forums. So there are going to be, more narrative warfares on it. So I think India, as a mature nation, would be very aware of the overall repercussions of what's happening.
And let's widen it out to the Indo-Pacific region, Ronan. What sort of impacts could, any tit-for-tat series of military action, perhaps, if we say not conflict, what impact would that have on the Indo-Pacific, the security there?
Okay, so for starters, I actually agree with Venus that I don't see a full-scale war being happened in the future being a very probable event. And basically, both sides just mentioned their incentives to de-escalate. And I think that also applies to China and the United States as well. So that also has some implication for the Indo-Pacific. For China and for the United States, they are going to back their allies, but just under the table, and they're not going to double down, because they don't want to see it getting out of control, right? So they are going to sometimes, or you can call it like lip service, or just provide something that they might need, but no further than that, right? So everybody will take some measured responses.
But we saw what happened after the Hamas attack. Nobody wanted that to spill over either, but various actors were
So there's a
brought
key
in.
difference between these two diets. So
Exactly.
basically,
I agree.
Yeah, in terms of the Pakistan and the India, both sides are nuclear powers, right? So that basically is the defining feature of this diet. Because of precisely the presence of nuclear weapons, every relevant parties on the table will try to take major actions. So that's the reason why, Indo-Pacific will not have a war.
Okay, Ghulam, just give you the last word. So obviously we can see that the problems at the root of this instate date all the way back possibly to 1947, the partition of British India. Can this problem ever be solved? I know it's a big question, but what would it take?
I think there's no solution at the near or midterm future between India and Pakistan. It's very complicated. It involves national narratives of both sides. So I don't see any major de-escalations or improvement of relationship between two sides in mid to near future.
Okay, we're going to have to end it there. Thank you so much, Venus Upadhayaya and Ronan Fu and Ghulam Ali for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. Stay safe and see you next time.